As we've discussed, we use computers to solve problems. One of the very first problems that we used computers to solve was basic arithmetic. Adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing. Basically what simple calculators now do. In this lesson, we're going to focus on how to get Python to do simple number calculations. We'll learn how to define and utilize floats, operators, and assignments, list the symbols for basic operators and exponents, and perform the order of operations. Let's start off by trying some basic code. Here, we've got two variables, x and y, and we'll assign them the values of 37 and 14. Then, let's print x plus y. When we run this code, no surprise, the solution and output for x plus y, 37 plus 14, is 51. Although 51 is the answer, it is nice to have descriptive output. 51 what? So let's add a little text with our output. The answer is, we've got our same two variables, x equals 37 and y equals 14. And we want the output to read, the answer is, and then display the answer. We have the words that we want to show up on the screen in quotation marks. And then we'll add on the values that we want calculated. Let's try this in Python and see what it does. I'm going to add the answer is, and then x plus y. If we run it, we get an error now. It's telling us that we cannot concatenate or add together string and int objects. Addition in programming using plus operator actually has two meanings. We can do numerical addition, which is what we did when we added 37 and 14, and it will perform a calculation. Alternatively, it can mean string concatenation, which we used previously, where it combines a string and another string. However, in this example, we're trying to combine a string and a number, which is impossible. What we want to happen here is have Python calculate x and y by performing a math calculation. So let's put them in parentheses. Python knows how to do this. 37 plus 14, two numbers. But then we want Python to place our string literal, the answer is, next to our number 51. To do that, we need to use str command in order to typecast x plus y to a string. So now, Python can properly understand what we want and do it. Let's say I now want to write a similar program with some input. For y, we can write int, parentheses input, parentheses enter a value, and close off the parentheses. Notice that when I type the last set of parentheses, Python highlights this first one. It's easy to get confused about how many parentheses you've typed in, and it's an easy error to overlook. If I leave that off and run, it says syntax error, bad input. It's like a trickle-down error. Python doesn't figure out that there's a problem until it trickles down to this next command. If we hop over here, restore the parentheses, and run, it's going to ask us to enter a value. Let's enter 5. We hit run, and now it tells us the answer is 42. 37 plus 5 we entered is 42. When we do basic operations, there are some rules about how we set them up. If we want to assign a number to a variable, the variable goes over here on the left, and then the calculation goes here on the right. This calculates 3 times 7, figures out that that's 21, and then it assigns that value to the x. I say assign here because what appears to be an equal sign that shows up between our variable on the left and our number on the right isn't actually an equal sign. I know you think I'm crazy, but in Python, that's actually known as the assignment operator. This is because technically, we're not saying the value on the left and the value on the right of our equation are equal. We instead are saying to do everything on the right of the equal sign and then assign or store that final value to the variable on the left. A small difference, but with a huge impact on how Python works. The basic operations are pretty much what you're used to from math classes. We have addition, which we've seen. We can subtract, we can multiply, and we can do division. The operators for addition and subtraction you know already, but you might not be familiar with the multiplication and division operators. There's no division symbol on the keyboard, so we use the /, the one on the same key as the question mark on your keyboard. And since x might be mistaken for a variable or a part of a string literal, for multiplication, we instead use the asterisk, the star that shares a key with the number 8. Again, When we're doing number calculations and want to store the solution to a variable, that variable goes on the left. On the right, we can do whatever calculation we want. We can even use variables as part of that calculation. The key, though, is that it does whatever is on the right side and then assigns that value to the variable on the left side. So this would take whatever is stored to x, multiply it by 5, and then assign that to the variable num. Storing the answer to a calculation is useful because we can then use that answer in other places of our code. But sometimes we don't need to store it. In that case, we can just output the solution right in a print statement. Like we saw in the example with outputting strings and numbers at the same time, parentheses played an important role. Parentheses are pretty powerful in Python. They tell the computer what needs to be done first. Let's take a look at parentheses in action with this example. In the first line, we have a variable f. Notice how it's on the left. That's because that's the variable I want to assign a value to. Then on the right side, I'm using input to ask the user to enter a temperature. So the inside set of parentheses is done first. And then once I get an input, I'm typecasting it to a float. Remember, by default, Python thinks these inputs are just string characters. But to make Python treat them as numbers, we need to tell it that. And because temperatures could have decimal values, we typecast it as a float instead of just an int. Remember, float references the decimal value that floats between the integer and the decimal portion of our number. In the next line, we want to convert that Fahrenheit temperature to Celsius using the formula temperature minus 32 times 5 divided by 9. So again, the variable I want to assign the answer to is on the left, C, and the calculation is on the right. We put the f minus 32 in parentheses because we need this to be the first calculation. Once it subtracts 32 from the temperature, f, then we can multiply it by 5 and divide by 9. Then below, we're outputting our solution in a meaningful statement. Notice I'm typecasting C as a string using the str command, because the computer cannot add a string literal, Celsius, and the number stored in C. Okay, let's try out a few numbers. The freezing point of water in Fahrenheit is 32 degrees. So we type that in and get 0, which is in fact the freezing point in Celsius. The boiling point of water is 212 degrees Fahrenheit. So if I try that, I get 100, which once again is correct. Let's try a decimal now. 52.5 degrees. Hit run, and the Celsius for that is 11.3 followed by a bunch of 8s, 9. Notice we get that repeating decimal. Now what if we run this and our user types in something like word? You see we get an error. Python cannot change a word into a decimal number. And unfortunately, we don't quite have the coding knowledge to prevent this yet. So for now, as we run and test our programs, we'll assume that our users are mostly intelligent and will enter the data type we want. One more thing as we're talking about these math operations. Python works just like a scientific calculator, and therefore will correctly apply the order of operations. You may remember learning the acronym PEMDAS, or the mnemonic device. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, when you first learned about order of operations. PEMDAS reminds us to first do parentheses, which we just looked at, then perform exponent math, then multiply and divide, in any order as it moves left to right, then finally perform addition and subtraction as they appear left to right. So as you work on writing calculations, keep this in mind. Speaking of exponents, how do we do that in Python? The operator for exponents in Python is 2 asterisks. Let's try it out. We'll start with a print command, and I'm going to enter 4 to the power of 2, or 4 squared, which should be 16. When we run it, we get 16. Some other programming languages have different ways to do exponents, but I find Python's exponent operator one of the easiest. I can do decimals, 2.5 to the 3.3 power, or things that make large numbers like 1056 to the 5th power. Again, when we want to work with exponents, the operator to perform that math is 2 asterisks. When we do print, it'll display the answer just like we've seen. 7 to the 4 would display 2401. The order here matters. The first number is the base. The second number is going to be our exponent. In this lesson, we've covered a couple of things. First of all, we've got the assignment operator, which will allow us to assign values to variables. Whatever is on the right of the equal sign will be assigned to the variable on the left. We've also talked about operators. Operators are represented by symbols that help us perform actions on values and variables. We started simply with some operations we're familiar with, but we'll soon see some that you've not seen before. I'll see you in the next lesson.